Hey, hello. Welcome to Monetary Therapy. This is Elio Harmon,
And I'm Travis Kendall.
and we're going to listen to Travis tell his story.
Hello.
Hello. Hey, so Travis, man, we've known each other for a little bit of time now.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit. But I don't know your financial story, man. So why don't you start from wherever you'd like to start, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Born. I think they had to pay some money to birth me. And actually, right after I was born, they didn't. They had to pay a lot of money to fix me. So it's kind of. I guess I'll talk about that. So I came out alive and well. They did a little test, and I was doing okay. So they took me home. Started eating, and then I would just projectile vomit everything that I ate up across the room. So my parents try to just feed me more, and then I would just vomit everything up. The kid won't eat, so they took me back when I started to change colors, and they asked for a new one. They said, this one's broken. We want a new one. They wouldn't give them a new one, so they had to try to fix me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's no refund policy.
Yeah, no refunds with babies, apparently. Yeah. So it turns out I had duodenal atresia. So do you know what your duodenum is?
I've heard of it.
Okay, it's the tube that attaches your stomach to your intestine.
Okay.
And then atresia is just a blockage. So I had duodenal atresia, a blockage of the duodenum. So basically that meant I would eat, I'd digest everything perfectly fine in my stomach. Then my stomach couldn't pass it on to my intestines, so my body just would throw it all up. So I think they had to kind of wait until I had grown a little bit and was strong enough to be able to withstand the surgery. So I spent at least a couple weeks, if not maybe a month or two, in the hospital just with IVs, getting all the nutrients I needed to survive because I wasn't able to eat anything until I was old enough to be able to withstand them, ripping my stomach open and cutting out the bit of tube that was blocked, resewing me back up again until I could actually have a working digestive system. Mm-hmm. At that point, it all worked out great. And I know that there was a little bit of financial hardship because of that on my parents. But I don't. If it was a big deal to them, they've done a great job at not making it known to me and not making me feel bad about it.
Parents are good at that.
Yeah. I had an older brother, 4 years older. Growing up, at around age, I go with age 5 now. My parents divorced and moved to separate houses. I think I was 6. I think they think I was 4. And then, so now I just split the difference and go with 5.
Yeah.
But, way too young to even know what's going on. Both parents, it wasn't really a bad divorce at all. And they're still amicable and have been and have always been. And so they're helping each other move into the new apartments and everything like that. And of course, maybe my brother knew a little bit more about what was going on, but I didn't. Mm-hmm. Over the years, a whole lot of issues and reasons why it happened. But one of the biggest ones that I've been able to gather from, two completely different sources and opinions and stories on how it happened and why it happened. But basically, the family got into some debt, and then there were some secrets about it. And then when the secrets came out, that was kind of like the last bit necessary to kind of decide that maybe that relationship wasn't going to work out. Mm-hmm. And so, from the very beginning, threw on some financial hardship just through medical bills. And I don't think that had anything to do with the future debt 6 years down the road. Mm-hmm. But then before I had really any grasp of what money was, I don't even think I was getting an allowance then, at age 6, was, my life definitely very shaped through financial struggles a little bit.
So when you were 6, did you know it was as a result of that?
Okay,
so this is after the fact, right?
I had no clue. I just, this is what all parents do, right?
Right.
And then it's not until maybe you're 8 or 9 that, oh wait, your parents aren't divorced? Mm-hmm. I thought just everyone's parents are divorced.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah. So start growing up there financially. And my parents did a really great job. They both, kind of vowed that neither of them would leave the town I grew up in.
And where's that?
Pickerington, Ohio. So just east of Columbus, east suburbs. So 20-minute drive to downtown. But the high school had, corn growing a little over into the high school grounds. So really, actually, a really decent mix of the farmland and the city life. I appreciated that looking back now a whole lot.
Right.
Little snooty. Sorry for anyone that still lives in Pickerington, but you know it. Definitely not not poor, not super rich either, but definitely there is some status that people like to throw around in that town. So super middle class, maybe upper middle class upbringing. My mother remarried really quickly, not obnoxiously quickly, but didn't have trouble finding someone. To a pilot. She had then kept the same job and had been with the same job for 20 years, and would later retire from that same job after doing over 30.
So what does she do?
So she's a flight attendant.
Okay.
So she is now retired a year or two ago, having been with the same company for 30 years, and was definitely very stable in that regard. Met a pilot. Financially, they were able to do okay, and that's where I would say there's the upper middle class upbringing I had. And you had they stayed in the same town, and so I would do like Monday, Tuesdays with my dad, Wednesdays and Thursdays with my mom, then every other weekend. So it wasn't kind of like I live with my mom and see dad on weekends. It was split very evenly, and then so had a good taste of kind of upper middle class life on my mom's side, and then my father stayed single for a while. He used a lot of the money he had to help pay off the debts after what that resulted from the divorce, and then I don't feel like was ever very okay with the jobs he had. It was always kind of like he'd do something that was tolerable for a while, and then he would kind of get bored, or he'd want to move on or go do something else. So he ended up jumping around a lot. He was a high school teacher for a while, worked at OSU for a little bit, a couple different jobs at OSU. And then he was always kind of a handyman, so that he started working at Sears, then Lowe's for a while. So he was a little bit of all over the place, and never really had as much of the financial ability that my mother and her side had. And so it was definitely for a vacation, we're going on like a 3-day cruise to Bermuda with my mom and my stepfather. And then with my dad, it's, we're borrowing our grandfather's RV and driving to Yellowstone.
Right.
And it's, cool things on both sides, and some cool perspectives I was able to gain on both sides. But one a little more upper middle class and one a little bit lower middle class, and kind of having the taste of both worlds. Went off to college. Went to the Ohio State University. Little like you, there wasn't really a question. You were just going. And it wasn't like I ever didn't want to, because the option of not going was never in my mind.
Right.
I only applied to 2 schools, Ohio State and Ohio University. Got into both, and only chose Ohio State because it was bigger, and I didn't know what I wanted to do whatsoever. So
let me back up a little bit.
Yeah.
'Cause, I want to talk to you a little bit about the high school experience.
Okay.
And then the double dipping opportunities that did you take advantage of the double dip by having your mom and your dad living separately and asking them for things that you might have wanted or needed? I always think because my mind is scheming right now, like, okay, well, Dad may not know what Mom already bought me, so maybe I could double dip here a little bit. Did you have any temptation to do that?
I don't think I did. We did have like separate Christmases, and honestly, I have no clue what total monetary amounts would have happened if they were together. And it is very possible that maybe I did get a whole lot of advantages on Christmas. But I don't know if they pretend it was $80 from Dad, $80 from Mom. Would that have been $160 if they were together?
Right.
Or would it just still have been they both are just kind of $80 kind of persons? So.
Right. Because I'm just thinking from, and this is just kind of off the beaten path a little bit, but I want to explore it a little bit because maybe some people have experience that might be listening to this. It's sometimes, in a divorce, although it's amicable and both sides are okay with each other and they have they're pretty cool about it. Sometimes a little bit of competition opens up, like, yo, I'm going to get him this $75 gift thing, and then the other person finds out and the other person does that. I mean, I'm not saying it was in your situation. I always find it fascinating because everybody's story when their parents break up is a little bit different. So did you find any of that?
There definitely was competition. Yeah. And I think what made it interesting was my father didn't have the financial means to compete.
I see.
Because he had one income. If you want, like, really on straight basics, he had one income versus two incomes. And so, kind of like I mentioned, like we would go do fun things in fun places that cost money to get to. When my mom would have Christmases,
right,
and then when my dad had Christmases, we would go on adventures to usually just, state parks, going to see my uncle who lived in D.C. and then going actually and seeing. Walking the mall and seeing all the monuments and stuff like that. It was like my father, I think, knew, he couldn't afford the plane trip down to Florida and then just living in a hotel for the weekend. So he would, okay, what can we do to compete, to still have a cool experience and have fun, without having the monetary means to just shell out $1,000 to go do something.
Right. So it's okay. So everything's kind of pretty average Joe, normal. Kind of upbringing. So what was high school like?
High school was interesting. So Pickerington was right on the edge of the city, and so you have decent schools, real decent schools, public schools, and then you have lower income inner city families that are just able and have the monetary ability to then get out of that situation, then bumping out to places like Pickerington. So we had an interesting mix of really well-off families that worked downtown and were loaded as far as the kids' eyes saw it, and some people that really just had nothing and weren't really doing much at all, didn't have a whole lot of opportunity that were starting out with at all. And you don't see it a whole lot. It's not really mentioned. No one was like making fun of people for being poor, but I think you could see it a lot more obviously in just sort of the upbringing people had and the way they carried themselves.
Yeah, I mean, from my high school experience, it was the best way you could tell is from the parking lot, right? That is where the different you might not talk about it in school, but it's who's riding the bus or who's going out to the parking lot and getting in whatever car they're getting in. So that's how you can really tell in situations like that.
So maybe that was the big moment financially, especially in high school, was cars. Almost everyone had cars once we were able to, and once you were old enough to drive it and you could buy a parking pass. Very few people that were juniors and seniors would ride the bus. But then, there are some people that, because everyone knew who had a job and who didn't.
Right.
I got a job at age 14 working at Kroger. My brother did, and then it was just kind of, a thing where it's just, you're old enough to work now, so now you're working.
Yeah.
It was, part-time, super light hours. But, I was working from literally the moment I was legally able to in this country. And then everyone knew that in school. And so you'd have a couple of the kids that everyone knew they didn't have a job, but suddenly they're rolling in with a brand new Mustang. And then you had other kids that, were like, would skip school sometimes to go get extra hours at the McDonald's across the street and drive in this beat up, crappy thing. And then you have some kids who still were working, but also completely decked out truck with like built-in grill in the back, where it literally would show up every Friday an hour before school and just like grill steaks before going into class. And
wait a second, I thought when you said grill in the back,
no,
I
like
thought you meant
cooking
like
grill. No,
I thought you meant like how some people have chrome on their tail lights. You mean like literally like a charcoal grill?
Yes.
Built into the truck?
Built in the bed of the pickup truck. And so he'd get his country friends would all show up early on Fridays and cook some meat before going into school.
Yo, if you went to high school with Travis and you have a pickup truck with a grill built in the back, I need you to go on social media right now and post a picture of it, because Travis is talking about you right now. But anyway, man, so high school seemed like, hey, high school. And so
by the time I bought my car, I drove my brother went off to college, so I drove the car that he bought. And you know what? I think this might become apparent throughout the story. I owe a lot of stuff to my brother, as far as him making all the mistakes that I could then see, and then know not to make, and know how to dodge that pit bull. He was a perfect lab rat that I could kind of go see what he would do first, and then know a little bit better choice to make along the way. So as soon as he turned 16, he bought his first car. I think it was like $9,000 something, $10,000, Mitsubishi Eclipse, 2001 or something.
That was
like
a nice
that.
car back then.
Yeah. Automatic, no, not automatic, so manual transmission, so very race car-esque. But he had to take out a loan to get it at 16 years old, and maybe the parents helped him, and then he paid back the parents. That could have been what happened. But I drove that car because he wasn't able to have it off of college when he moved away, and so I got, like, right when I turned 16, that's the car I drove too. And then he eventually took it off, so I had to buy mine. So it was probably like 17 until I bought my first car. And it was $5,000, a 99 Pontiac Grand Prix, and this was 08, 09. I put $3,000 down, just from the money I'd saved up from working. My mother went ahead and fronted the extra $2,000, and then I paid her back over time. So I got a thanks, Mom, for the 0 interest loan. But almost bought it outright. And then I still drive it now. So a good seven years later. 8, 9. It's been a while. I've had the car for a while.
Okay.
Without my brother making the mistake of hardly being able to afford the car, but getting the car he wanted anyway. I don't know if I would have been so conservative with my choice in a vehicle. So I think so we kind of talk about the first mistakes you made in your backstory.
So that was a good one.
That's the first good choice I think I made with my money.
Yeah, and it's holding up. It's a Pontiac. It's American made. Probably doesn't cost a bunch of money to service, so you can keep it for as long as you have it.
I hardly ever service it, man.
Right.
Like I get a whole bunch of recall notices, but they're just like, sometimes the oil will spray up a little bit on part of the thing, and there is possibility for a fire. It's happened once, so now we have to send a letter to everyone.
Right. So, ignoring recall notices. Should that be a show topic?
Probably. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, because probably everybody, by the time you listen to the show for a while, you're going to keep your car forever. So I don't know if we need to be telling people to ignore their recall notices.
Then later on, when we start running out of stuff, we can tell people how to change their oil.
I know. We'll see. All right, man. So why Ohio State? Because you go to Ohio State after leaving Pickerington. So why'd you choose that school?
I only applied to Ohio State and Ohio University. And, my brother, again, did the whole tour of colleges. Went to Penn University. Went to, checked out Michigan. Checked out some minor Ivy League schools. And so 4 years later, by the time I was going through the same process, I was just like, I'm not doing that. Because I just knew the price was ridiculous and out-of-state fees were ridiculous. So I knew I was going to stay in Ohio for school. I had considered going to USC because I was kind of into music and I was kind of into film, and so I was trying to maybe think about getting into their film program. But just looking up the pricing of what it would cost a year, and it was $9,000 for first year at Ohio State, and it was $45,000 for first year at USC if I went out-of-state fees.
Wow.
And so it was never an option. It was never a thing I was going to do to go out of state because I knew I couldn't afford it. So fun monetary thing too was at my brother's high school graduation party. One step back, my grandfather had always said that he would pay for my brother and I's college education.
Mom or dad's side?
My dad's father.
Okay.
And so the entire time, I think maybe that even was part of the reason I knew I was going to college, because it was going to be paid for. We had someone from the day we were born saying, I got college education covered for him. And so my parents didn't worry about it either. I'm just, okay, you can go wherever you want to go. Granddad Kendall said that he would say, pay for it, no big deal. At my brother's high school graduation party, he shows up, pulls my father aside and says, hey, by the way, I'm sorry, but I can't pay for anything.
Whoa.
Yeah. So, had a moment in the family there that maybe have caused some issues. And so I think, and maybe that was part of the reason why my brother was kind of getting a little more adventurous where he was applying and everything like that. But then you get the bombshell literally 3 months before you ship out to wherever you're going of, oh yeah, you thought you're going to have all this paid for, and not anymore. So he ended up going to Ohio State, and I don't know his reasons for doing that. But 4 years later, I only apply to places in state because I've now had 4 years of knowing that, okay, I have to pay for all of it. So USC was a dream, but no way could I afford that.
Right.
So I only applied to Ohio State and Ohio University. And actually my parents picked which one I would go to themselves because I wasn't sure and I wasn't really making a decision. And so I remember having a conversation with my mom, sat me down, and just like, you should go to Ohio State. You don't know what you want to do, which was true. I had no clue what I wanted to do. And Ohio State's like 3 times larger and has more opportunities. So once you do find out what you want to do, odds are it'll be at Ohio State more than Ohio. I did go to a Scholars Day visit at Ohio University, and I didn't really like my high school experience. And in the 15 minutes walking around on campus, saw like 10, 11, 12 people from the year above me in high school. Just walking around, and so that was definitely a big turnoff as well. I was far more in the mindset of I want to go get lost somewhere,
right?
And so Ohio State did definitely do that for me for sure.
Okay, so you used the word affordability a couple of times when you were talking about Ohio State. So, in your opinion, when you say affordable, what do you mean? Like you could pay for it completely out of pocket, or that you would get student loans but you wouldn't get drowned in them? What do you mean by affordable?
I meant that strictly in regard to, or in comparison to, the other options.
Okay.
And so state school was never a thing I considered. And so I guess I kind of assumed I was going to do the real college thing and just deal with it and deal with whatever loans and debt I get into. Mm-hmm. But I'm not willing to deal with $120,000 of debt. I'm only willing to deal with as little as debt as possible.
Okay.
So affordability for me was, just going to the cheapest actual college where you could actually go and have the college experience, live in the dorms, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
My mother did do a good job of saving up. My mother and stepfather. So they were able to cover between my mother and then my father through like FAFSA and government help, cover half of my college. So that was definitely, I'm very appreciative for that.
Right.
But it was up to me to cover the other half. And it was the same thing for my brother. He decided to join the military, so he was part of the ROTC program, so they covered kind of his other half. I did my freshman year in college and was living off of some money I saved up from working at Kroger. And then my second and third years in school, I worked as a resident advisor to cover my second half.
Right. So, again, you keep saying words that in my story just seem so weird for somebody in high school. Considering affordability and, which is awesome that you did that, my savings from high school. Wow, what a great show. This is Monetary Therapy with Elio Harmon. So looking forward to next week where we get the end of the story for Travis's monetary experience.
Yeah. I'm Travis Kendall.
I'm Elio Harmon.
Signing out. Bye.